Buenas and Afide. Good afternoon. This public hearing conducted by the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts is called to order at 2:05 Chamorro Standard Time. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on May 15, 2024, with the second notice provided on May 20th, 2024. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website and the Government of Guam Public Notices portal. This afternoon, the committee will hear testimony on the following agenda items: the reappointment of Lulene C. and Agustin as a member, guidance counselor of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. We'll also hear testimony on Bill number 253-37 Core, introduced by Senator Joe S. and Agustin, which is an act to amend subsection 3102.3 of Chapter 3, Title 17 Guam Code, annotated relative to the composition and terms of office for board members of the Guam Board of Education. We'll also hear testimony on Bill number 276-37 LS, which I introduced along with co-sponsors Senator Sabina Perez and Joanne Brown, which is an act to add a new paragraph to subsection 3103 of Chapter 3, Title 17 Guam Code, annotated relative to requiring all reports of the Superintendent of Education to the Guam Education Board be posted on the Guam Department of Education's website. And lastly, we'll hear testimony on Bill number 282-37 LS, introduced by Senator Dwayne Nicolas, which is an act to add and amend subsection 8102, 5 subsection 8102 BB and subsection 8104 B of Article 1, Chapter 8, Title 5A, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, relative to removing the PRAXIS core mathematics requirement from the Guam Educator certification requirement. I'd like to welcome my colleagues joining us today, Senator Joe San Agustin and Senator Dwayne San Nicolas. And I am Senator Chris Barnett. Before we begin, I'd like to go over general rules of conduct. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name for record-keeping purposes. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or individual testifying is not permitted. The chairperson of the committee may order the removal from a hearing any member of Legislature and Guahan who fails to observe proper decorum pursuant to the 37th Guam Legislature standing rules. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the hearing by the host. We'll now proceed with the hearing testimony on the reappointment of Ms. Lulene C. and Agustin as a member of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. We'll hear from those who are here to present testimony on behalf of the nominee before we hear from Ms. San Agustin. And signed up to provide a testimony, we have Ms. Maria Gutierrez. Good afternoon, Ms. Gutierrez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Senator San Agustin, and Senator Dwayne. My name is Maria Gutierrez. I'm a resident of Tamuning and a voting from the municipality of Tamuning. I'm here this afternoon to testify in support of the reappointment of Ms. Lulene Concepcion San Agustin. I have known Lulene for many years, not only as a counselor, but we have a relation from the Mendiola blood. And I'm very confident that her representation on the Guam Educator Commission is very important, especially that the Department of Education teachers are the only one that have to go to the Certification Commission. As under the 14 points, we need certified teachers, number one of that 14 points. So I know that she would do good because she's not only new to DOE, she's been there. And Lulene is one of those counselors that when we received the NASB award for early childhood on the mental health, she was one of those that developed the policy for the early childhood mental health to provide to the students. So it's policy 382. So there's nothing else I can say. I know her as not only as a counselor, but as a family member. So I think, please confirm her at your earliest session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gutierrez. Is there anyone else who wishes to provide testimony on the nomination of Lulene C. and Agustin? If not, then we'll hear from the nominee. Buenas and good afternoon, Ms. San Agustin.
Half a day. Thank you, Mrs. Gutierrez. Hofday, Senator Barnett, Senator Nicolas, and Senator Agustin. I am deeply honored to be here today for my reappointment as a member to the Guam Commission of Educator Certification. I would like to thank Governor Lulene Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio for the continued trust in me. Throughout my career, I have had the privilege of working in various capacities that have prepared me for this role. For my experience in working with the now retired Judge Anita A. Sokola in the courtroom for 10 years, 6 years as a GDOE clinical intern under the supervision of Nadine Cepeda, and 11 years as a school counselor with the Guam Department of Education, I have gained valuable insights into challenges that many of our children on Guam encounter. Having me on the committee and seeing through the lens of a school counselor, together we can ensure that our education system not only imparts knowledge, but also fosters the social and emotional growth of our students. If reappointed, I pledge to continue my approach and role as a commission member with dedication, integrity, and a strong sense of responsibility. I believe in the power of collaboration and open communication to drive positive change. I am committed to continue working closely with my fellow commission members and making well-informed decisions that serve the best interests of our children of Guam. I am truly excited for another opportunity to contribute to the success of the Guam Commission of Educator Certification. I am confident that together we can achieve great things and uphold the mission for our children of Guam.
Thank you, ma'am. And the committee did also receive testimony from Roberta M. Abade, who is the community representative and the chair of the commission. And I'll just go ahead and read the testimony into the record. I'd like to give my support for the reconfirmation of Lulene St. Augustine as a commissioner representing the counselor representative in the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. As a member of the GCEC over the last few months since she was confirmed to replace our previous counselor representative, she provided insights for the commissioners and willingly took on the responsibility of treasurer for GCEC. In the short period of time she has been on the commission, Ms. St. Augustine regularly attends the meetings, assists in the committees, and provides the viewpoint of guidance counselors in the Guam Public School System for the GCEC certification process. She's a professional in all her dealings with the commissioners and GCEC staff. She demonstrates her dedication and commitment to the betterment of our education system. Her reconfirmation as council representative would be a benefit to the GCEC. Ms. St. Augustine is willing to serve our educational community and the children of Guam. Please give her your kind consideration and approval of her reconfirmation as a member of the Guam Commission on Educator Certification. Sincerely, Roberta M. Abadai, NBCT, Community Representative and Chairperson, Guam Commission on Educator Certification. So there's some favorable testimony there for you, ma'am. I guess if you could just kind of maybe describe your service under the commission and some of the things you look forward to doing if you're reappointed for a second term.
Okay, so since I've been on the commission for a few months, we have worked on the classes in lieu for the PRAXIS tests. If they were taking the PRAXIS test and they don't make it within 5 points, we have that in place. I've also reviewed some extended applicants for their certification and had a few of those approved. That's what I've done in the few months that I've been with the commission. And the working with the PRAXIS, that was already in motion when I got in. So,
what are some of the challenges, if any, that you've seen, with teachers trying to become certified and taking the PRAXIS exam?
As of right, I haven't come in. We've had a few that have challenges for certification, but I don't have, there wasn't many for the PRAXIS, and if it was for the PRAXIS, I don't have the exact what subject it was in. Yeah.
Can you kind of explain how important you feel having the perspective of a guidance counselor on the commission is?
Having a school counselor on the commission, because we do have to get certified by the commission, having that I'm in the classroom, I mean, in the school, at the school level, and I'm able to understand what is needed to be a good counselor and a productive counselor, I think I can give great input and what's the importance of needing for the certification.
As a guidance counselor, are you aware of some of the challenges and concerns that guidance counselors have, in the Guam Department of Education?
I do, yes.
Would you mind sharing some of those concerns that you hear about?
You want to, okay, so there's, within the counseling division, we have counselors who look at ways of use the ASCA. We use our ASCA formats, and to go. We follow through with the ASCA do's and don'ts, and that. And so we do have some counselors who are really trying to push for it. And I understand that, but I also understand that in the school system, being where we're at, and we are short of a lot of supports in terms of, for our students, our ability to help the entire school, however which way we can, is very crucial.
And how would you describe the status of the certification of guidance counselors? Are we looking at a backlog? Are we moving along, at an adequate pace?
I don't see any backlog with the certification of counselors.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'd like to recognize my colleague, Senator Tello-Taidegui. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like to also defer to Senator Joseph Agustin for any questions for the nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the nice thing about the nominee is we have the same last name. Thank you. And you're from your Conception, so you're from Jigo. Pretty much
Yes.
recognize that. You have an edge. I looked at your background and, gosh, administrative support for SBA, law, yeah, you work for Your Honor Anita Sokola, you're a bailiff, and you're a school counselor. Great resume.
Thank you.
You got my full support,
Thank you.
Mr. Augustine.
I appreciate that.
Great,
Mr.
great,
Sparks.
great last name, and great middle name. But technically, when I look at your resume, it carries its own weight, regardless of what's your last name. It speaks for itself. It just makes me feel good because your last name is the same as mine, so it works that way. And it's not being biased, but your resume says a lot. And the people of Guam need to recognize that it's what you've accomplished and where you're heading, and you have foresight. You're looking outside the box, and you're moving forward with this. And I fully support your nomination. Thank you, Mr. Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. San Augustine.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. Senator San Nicolas?
Counselors rock.
Thank you.
I'm a former school counselor myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The chairman had asked you some questions about the PRAXIS.
Okay.
Have you had any difficulty yourself when you took the PRAXIS test?
I did take the PRAXIS twice.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So, are you familiar with the company or the nonprofit organization that administers the PRAXIS?
ETS?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you
I'm not entirely familiar with details, but yes.
Have you read anything lately about the current situations across the nation about the shortages of teachers and some states actually offering alternatives to the PRAXIS?
I've heard of alternatives, yes.
Yes. And does the Commission on Education, the Certification Board, are there currently alternatives?
We currently have one in place.
And what is that, ma'am? Could you describe that for me, please?
We have the, I don't have the exact SOP on it, But we do have, if a aspiring teacher takes the praxis core and fails within 5 points, they are able to look for a class in lieu of the praxis, and if it's approved by the certification board, which we have very, very well qualified commissioners on it that approve it, they can go ahead and take the praxis, the classes in lieu of the...
In lieu of the test.
Yes, correct.
Perfect. Yeah,
And yes.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't mean to
was gonna
interrupt
say,
you.
and I have Dr. Michelle Santos, who's from the commission as well, if I...
Does it cost
Mister.
anything to take those classes?
Yes, it does.
How much are those?
Oh, to take the...
The alternative method?
Yes, I believe it does. Yes, but
How much is that?
I don't have that with me.
So once you pass that class, you can get a certification, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No. See somebody shaking her head in the background. When we get to that bill, we'll
okay.
probably discuss it
Yes.
more. But I just wanted to try to highlight, I guess, your knowledge about the current situation with I know we don't have any issues with school counselors and stuff like that, but I see you have some law enforcement background as a bailiff, right?
Correct.
I was a law enforcement officer too.
Oh, wow.
You
We're
got
almost
two check
identical.
marks. Yep, you got 2 check marks there, and you have my support for your appointment.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you. Nothing
Senator
further, Mr.
Nicolas.
Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nicolas. Senator Tydegui?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to my colleagues, most especially to the appointee. I was listening, actually, when you were doing your testimony, and I heard part of Ms. Gutierrez's testimony as well. And yeah, I too am very amazed with all the background that you have. This is very impressive. And I'm just very grateful that you want to continue in this position. This is a reappointment, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That you would like to continue to do this, because this is not one of those, glamorous, boards that you can get on and do. I mean, some people don't even know it exists, but, it's obvious that sitting in this position, you do it for the love of your community and to ensure that what you're doing is done correctly. I just really in awe of you, and thank you for doing that. I do have one question, though.
Okay.
With regards to the responsibilities that you have, and is the meetings done at the University of Guam, or is it done at DOE?
University of Guam,
It is at
School of
the
Education.
Okay, so it's all located there in that area. Right?
The ones that I've gone to, yes.
And do you have enough for quorum there right now? Do you have quorum?
We do. We do, and we do have one, and we're still waiting for a teacher. There's a teacher vacancy, which I know that it's in the process.
Okay,
Yes.
but you're still able to do what you're tasked to do as
Correct.
sitting on this board, okay?
Correct.
So you're just looking for one more, to add on. And, okay, what is the one thing that you wish you could change, when it comes to your position and overseeing this board? If you had an option to make one change to better the board's ability.
I don't have anything that I would want to change at this time.
Oh, good.
Yes, that I know of.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been there just a few months.
Yeah.
So as of right now, I'm okay with everything that's been going on.
Do you have a website?
We do have a website.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to review the website lately?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
And is it up and all the information is provided there in a timely manner, and the open government law, it's put on your meetings and...
As a matter of fact, I was just on it a few days ago, and yes, everything that I know that should be there is there.
Okay, that's very good. So you checked all my boxes too as well.
All right.
So I really appreciate it again.
Thank you.
And of course, my office is always open if there's anything I can be of assistance to you, because obviously, giving yourself and the time away from your family to sit on this board is very commendable. And I thank you so much for that, and good luck to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sigil Smasi, Senator Tydegui. Good afternoon, Senator Kanata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Full disclosure, we're actually related, but definitely have my support for your nomination. I just wanted to thank you for your service. Continue to keep up the good work, and my office stands ready to support you guys if anything is needed, okay?
Thank you, Senator.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Canata. And Lulene, I guess that's it. Fence it. Yeah, too easy. Easy money. I got kids in Jigo, so there you go. So the circle's complete. So, Sidos Masi, the committee will continue to accept testimony on the nomination of Mrs. Lulene C. San Agustin as the guidance counselor member of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. And you can email that testimony to my office, malfunction at Guam Legislature .org. If there are no further questions or comments, we'll proceed with the with hearing testimony on bill number 253-37 COR introduced by Senator Joe San Agustin. It's an act to amend subsection 3102.3 of Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the composition and terms of office for board members of the Guam Board of Education. I'll begin by inviting the bill's author, Senator Joe San Agustin, to speak on the bill in his opening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Buenas and good afternoon to everyone and my colleagues. Bill 253 is introduced by myself, Senator San Agustin, and is an act to amend Section 3102.3 of Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the composition and terms of office for board members of the Guam Board of Education. This bill proposes critical amendments aimed at enhancing the effectiveness, representation, and stability of our Board of Education. I just remind my colleagues that I'm a former board member. I was there for 6 years. So I'm quite familiar with what the board does, what it needs to do. But going back, at its core, the bill seeks to revise the composition and terms of office for board members to ensure a more balanced and robust governance structure for our educational system by modifying the elected members' structure. While it reduces the number of elected voting members from 6 to 5, it will convert the membership of a student member into a voting member. The voting student member must be high school junior or senior and elected among the members of the island-wide Board of Governing Students, while maintaining a grade point average of 2.5 or above. The voting student member will bring a direct student voice, which will provide insight from the very individuals our education policies impact most directly. Additionally, I am recommending amending the law regarding the election of board members by removing the need for nominees to receive a petition of 150 signatures in order to be a nominee, thereby widening the access for greater inclusion in running for the board. In other words, for the board members, you don't need to get any petitions anymore. All right? The bill does not affect the statute regarding the non-voting representative from 1, the exclusive bargaining unit for teachers and employees, and 2, a member appointed by the Mayor's Council of Guam. Lastly, this bill prohibits active employees of the Guam Department of Education from serving on the board, thereby eliminating any potential conflict of interest and ensuring that board decisions are made objectively and in the best interest of our students. These amendments are designed to create a Board of Education that is representative of stakeholders who are tasked to make long-term strategic decisions. By incorporating diverse perspective, we are setting the stage for a more effective and a responsive educational system. I urge my colleagues to support the bill and join me in our commitment to advancing the quality of education in Guam. Thereby, together, we can ensure that our educational governance is reflective, balanced, and equipped to meet the challenges of the future. But I also was advised by some of my former board members and other folks that maybe the student rep, because of the question of liability, if the board was ever sued, I don't want the students to get involved in that. So I have no problem with, maybe we'll just remove that for now and readjust it and look at it later. But everything else, removing the petition and making sure that nobody on the department, any employee of the Department of Education is part of the board, I'll keep that intact. But removing the student rep as a voting member, because I know for a fact when I was in the board, the student reps were recognized 100%. Some of the board members didn't like me doing that, but I said, no, we're here for them. They're not here for us. The board is there for the students. We got to watch out for their well-being. But because of the question of liability on the students, being a voting member, I have no reservations. If it needs to be toned down, Mr. Chair, and maybe just remove that from the bill. But everything else will stand as introduced. And Sidus Marzi, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sidus Wasi, Senator St. Augustine. Is there anyone here to provide testimony on this bill? The Superintendent of GDOE, Dr. Eric Swanson, and also GDOE Board of Education member Maria Gutierrez. Dr. Swanson, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Senators. The following perspectives on this subject bill and the others that are the express opinion of myself, the Superintendent of the Guam Department of Education, based on my knowledge of the challenges facing our schools, school system, and learner communities. I've provided some opinions in earlier correspondence, but will reinforce them here for your reference. They are not the agreed-upon opinions of the Guam Education Board, as there has not been an opportunity for the board to discuss, consider, and vote on a majority opinion. With regard to this bill, in general, there are two areas of concern I see in the language. The election of 5 voting members at large poses an issue around equitable representations of persons across the entire island of Guam. At present, at-large members are from the central and northern villages of the island, do not necessarily represent regional constituencies. Recent work that I've done with various regions on the island around school consolidation have surfaced very divergent views depending on the communities or villages involved. To better achieve equity, I recommend electing 1 member from each of the 4 regions plus 1 member at large. This will better represent the demographics of our voter community. And then seating student members on the board provides a valuable voice that needs to be heard. My experience in Washington State having students on the board in a non-voting capacity provided valuable perspective when they were present. However, absenteeism due to school events often precluded their participation. Further, making the student members a voting member presents serious legal issues for liability, which the board has named, when the board's named as a defendant in the legal proceedings. One should also consider that though academically and intellectually capable of the work of the board members, these students are usually under the age of 18. This places them in an adult setting as a minor. I support non-voting student members of the board, but oppose serving in a voting capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Ms. Gutierrez?
Half-a-day Senators, thank you again for being here. For this bill, I'm here testifying on my behalf, Maria Gutierrez. I'm not testifying on behalf of the board, but as one of the longest board member, I have gone to a lot, from changing from district, Lagu, Haza, Katan, Luchan, to island-wide. I was also on the Guam Territorial Board of Education, so I know it all. I have no problem with the way the bill is, and Senator St. Augustine, we were colleagues on the Guam Education Policy Board. We had students ever since, and I am proud to say that I was the board member during the term of former Congresswoman Dalio that fought for the student rep on the board. And thanks to former Congressman Dalio and former Governor Gutierrez, they're both on the board. And they passed a law to make a student member on the board, but not voting. And for the reason is liability. And that's where this Island Board of Governing Students came about. They used to have Guam Congress students on the education board, but that was again changed. It changed because some of the students that sits on the board, they go by popularity, and it came from private schools, so they don't know how it is in the public school. I have a problem with the student being a voting member. I work closely with the Island Board of Governing Students. Dr. Swanson has not worked with those students because we had some issues. But all that time, the student voice was very important. I was very sensitive to the students when they share their concerns. That doesn't mean that the board doesn't listen to. Yes, we did. During COVID time, when the board was having a difficult time discussing whether the students should go back face-to-face 5 days, we had 2 student board members that were sitting. One represented Tizan, came from Tizan, the other one from Simon Sanchez. And because we always have a part in our agenda for them to give a report or share the concern of the students that they represent. Because we do have meetings every month with these students. As their advisor, yes, I was hard, because I want them to make sure that sitting on the board doesn't mean you're just going to sit and earn the title of iBox representative, but do what you have to do to represent all the students in the public school system. This thing, we heard them, and they say, if you want us to go back face-to-face 5 days, what are you going to do to provide us the services, the mental health? We are going through a lot. We listened to them seriously, and under Mr. Mark Mindola's chairmanship, he said, okay, what do you want us to do? We need training. And they were asked, are you willing to take the lead? They said, yes, they did. As a member of the National State Board of Education, I tried to put them on a panel because there was an agenda for student panel, but we were too late. I was asked by the NASB president, can you provide a video? Because they're doing training with the counselor. And thanks to Nadim Cepeda, who was assigned by Mr. John Fernandez to facilitate and help the students and all other counselors. There's two students, Isabella Paco and Grace de la Cruz, developed the video that they were using to train for the training of our students in the middle school and high school. They were asked to present the video to NASB. At the time, I asked Mr. Fernandez, is it possible that you find a way to fund the airfare of these 2 students to go to Washington, D.C., where they're invited to present their video? And thanks to the mileage under DOA, that is for students and medical. Mr. Fernandez worked hard with Mr. Burns, and they got the travel. The presentation that those 2 students did in Washington, D.C. went nationwide, because every board member that was there from the different states were asking if they can share their video to be shown all over the state that are members. They were interviewed by the Fox radio station. And let me just read what was written. And this is the voice of the student, even though they're not voting member. Student of the Guam Education Board propose a curriculum for student mental health training in schools to build mental and behavioral health issues, awareness, and healthy coping mechanism for dealing with emotional challenges. The Department of Education collaborated with the island-wide Board of Governing Students to create a survey assessing students' mental health challenges, and the 2 student board members, Grace Ann de la Cruz, by the way, she was the valedictorian of Simon Sanchez for 2021, and Isabella Paco promoted the survey through social media. After receiving responses from over 2,000 students, De La Cruz and Paco worked with the department's lead school psychologists at the University of Guam to coordinate and facilitate the training. Senators, these 2 students represented Guam as a student board member. As a member of the Western Region National State Board of Education, not all states have student voting members. They're more of advisory. The CNMI has a non-voting. The state of Hawaii, the state of Washington, Arizona, and other states, they only have the student as advisory because of the liability. And I think I share with you, Senators Barnett, the article that I met this student. He's out of Maryland, and this is what he said. Just let me see what he said. That he was so happy when he get to be a voting member of the board. But little did he know, I never thought that I would, at age 17, I would rack up the credits for that, because he was faced with 2 lawsuits as a voting member. So please do not put our students with stress that whatever they vote, it will come after them. Because I had been working closely with the Island Board of Governing Students. A student once told me, Mrs. G, there's something that the board's gonna vote on. My teachers, my principal told me, make sure you vote the other way. This is not right. I don't want those students to be afraid that when they go back to school, to their school, and it's not what the teachers or the administrator want, that they'll be in the doghouse. So leave our students, they're very good. We listen to them. I'll tell you, I am very sensitive on the board, and I'm very vocal to my colleagues. If they think that they're only students, we're the adults. There's no such thing. There's a student voice have to be heard, and we value that on the Guam Education Board. As far as the 5, I hear Superintendent about district, Senator San Agustin, you and I were in the Lago District. And we also by district, we were even challenged on the 1 man, 1 vote, because there was 3 for the Lago, because it's being the largest district. That's why we went on the elect as island-wide. It doesn't mean you can, because they'll say, oh, go to your representative. That's your Lago, that's your Hadza. When we sit on that board, there's no such thing as where you're from. You listen to everyone. In the states, yes, they have state board and district and local board, and they represent from the county where they're from. But Guam is too small for that. Leave it as it is. Just like people are saying, the senators should be elected by district. I remember that used to be. Not anymore. We represent everyone. So please do not think of having the Board of Education by district. Anyone is free to run. Regardless, as long as you're a U.S. citizen, you want to run. But you have seen in the past that sometimes there's only 6 elected, and that's it. There's no number 7 candidate. It's the commitment. I do not want you to compare this with the states. I deal with state board members, and they represent their county. But Guam is too small to be district, regardless. Every voice is to be heard. So for me, why I support the bill, I do not support the student to be put in a spot. And also the do not cut it down to 5, make it 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gutierrez. Ms. Okada?
Buenas. Half a day, Todo Samzu. Thank you to the Committee on Education, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide my testimony. My name is Mary Okada, current chairperson for the Guam Board of Education, but I come today in my personal capacity. My testimony is in partial support of 253-37, an act to amend Section 3102.3, Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the composition and terms of office for board members of the Guam Board of Education. However, this does not represent the views of the members of the board of the Guam Education Board because we did not have an opportunity to discuss this matter and provide a collective response. I have personally reviewed and proposed the proposed composition for the Guam Education Board and request that the 6 elected members, voting members, remain. Although I understand the intent of including a student as a voting member, I ask you to consider the time required for board meetings and committee meetings outside of the time needed to support school requirements and activities, but most important, the legal considerations. This particular component regarding legal considerations may require parental consent if a student were to serve. In any legal action levied against the Guam Board of Education, legal exposure could include the student voting member. Students currently have representation as an advisory member of the board. The Island-wide School Board of Governing Students, or IBOGS, although inactive this past academic year, is an avenue for students to voice their concerns during the regular monthly Guam Education Board meetings. An example of their engagement was instrumental in the support for mental health awareness that also provided an opportunity for them to showcase their involvement during the National Association for State Boards of Education, or NASB, conference several years ago. I ask that you consider changing the composition of the Guam Education Board in this matter and not include the students. And so that is my testimony in partial support of Bill 25337. Sidus Masi.
Thank you, Board Chair Okada. Is there anyone else who wishes to provide testimony on the bill? I guess I'll turn it over to the author for questions. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm happy that I opened up the bill first and spoke about it. That I have no problem. I reached out to the chairman to just remove the student rep as a voting member. So I think I got ahead of the 2 board members speaking. That's one. But I want to keep the, and because of liability, I did state that earlier. And then, but I want to make sure that we maintain, if you notice on page 1 of the bill, instead of 6 to 5, it'll stay at 6. Okay, it'll remain the same. And if you notice further, it goes, each elected voting member shall serve for a term of 4 years. And the reason for that, because on many occasions it overlaps during the election process. Okay? Then the next one is that it's remove the petition requirement. That's number 3. And then the last one would be no active employees of the Guam Department of Education are eligible to serve on the board, period. Just to eliminate any conflict of interest. Okay, other than that, I think everything is pretty much it's pretty much normal. It's just removing the petition, extending your term, and no employee of Department of Education will be on the board, will be allowed to be on the board. Okay, and I don't know about the districting part, because like Mayor Gutierrez mentioned, we went through that.
Senators and Agustin,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
most of the states, board members, whether they serve 4 years and up. That's why
Okay.
we're the only one that are serving 2 years. And in fact, we are coming up our national annual conference.
So you're in support of the 4 years I'm
4
recommending?
years, yes,
Okay.
because, and that's why when I had a Zoom meeting every month with my board of directors, and they're asking us to nominate for the 2 offices in the National State Board. We cannot qualify for Guam because it says here you cannot be serving your last year term, which, you know, like for me, this is my last term on the board if I don't run for the election. And it also, even if I was run, there's no guarantee that I'm going to win, right? So for Guam, we're not qualified because we are serving our last term. The only board members that will qualify are those that are appointed by the governor because they serve 3 years versus those that are elected, we serve 2 years, just like you senators. But every state has their 4 years and up, some of them even 10 years as board, so. And
Okay.
this is state board. So for
So-
Guam Education Board, we're both state and local.
All right. Okay, so you're in agreement with the 4 years. But you know, one of the key things here is that because of the other changes that I recommended. The key is going to be, as soon as this can get out of committee and get to the floor and vote it before the board members have to submit all their packet to the Guam Election Commission. Okay, that's going to be one of the factors that are going to be the key. Because maybe the board members don't have to go and start looking for signatures for their petition. You'll just eliminate that. If you want to run, you just turn in your requirement and run based on the Guam elections rules. Other than that, then I think it'll be a lot easier. Maybe we'll get more people involved. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Sudos Masi, Senator San Augustine, Senator Nicolas. I'd also like to recognize Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no questions.
Senator Taitigui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here to testify. As a board member, Mary, this is for you, Mary. You've been on the board for what, about 2 years now, is it, or 1 year? How long have you been on the board, Mary? Dr. Okada, sorry. we're friends, so I know. Yeah, how long have you been sitting on the board?
3 years.
3 years now,
Yeah.
right. Did you have any issues with, all these changes that are being put into place? Did you have any issues before when you were sitting on the board that this was a problem that the board is facing, or the ability for anybody to actually participate and be sitting on the board? Was there ever a problem?
No.
Okay. So my next question is the petition. I think petitions are good. That's my opinion, because it's not just everyone that should sit on something as important as the education board. We need people who are respected in the community, people who understand what is needed, for our children at school. I mean, DOE is having a lot of problems. And in order, even when people are running for senator, they have to have their petition, 250 names to sign on us so that we can contribute to the election or be a part of the election. So you get a group of people, individuals, who look at you and said, I'm going to sign your petition. They will think twice, and it makes it a little bit harder, because I just don't want anyone sitting on this board, an important board like this, that oversee our children. So I don't understand why the petition is not important. I think it's very important. The extended term, I noticed in your testimony, you had no comment about the extended term. So I'm just going to go to Dr. Swanson, if you can tell me if there's you've worked, like you said, in Washington State. You've been part of the education system there. Has there been any terms that you're familiar with that it makes it better for that board to go 2 years to 4 years? I mean, what's the standard in the U.S.?
The standard, and I had provided this to Senator San Augustine in an email earlier. What the normal procedure is that the school district, regardless of the size, are usually 5 or more districts. They divide up the members in alternating 2-year terms. So they're 4-year terms, but they're offset by 2 years. And general election every 2 years anyway. So half of your board approximately is running for re-election every 2 years.
Right.
If you have a change, you still have consistency and corporate knowledge that doesn't get lost on the board. And that in my district, that worked very, very well.
Okay, that was my next question. So you find it to be working. And so does this meet, the same type of scenario as what you were used to in this bill?
That's the only other recommendation I would make, is to make if it's 6 elected, then they run in offsetting 2-year cycles so that you always have that
continuity, right? Yeah, it's the continuity that needs to be stay in place while the other ones. I agree with that on that one for sure. I also concur, I guess everyone here has concurred too, with the student regarding the liability with the student. I definitely see the reasoning for that. That's very important. But I also wanted to, for the record, read into the record the testimony from the Guam Federation teachers that we received. Dear Honorable Senators, this is to provide testimony on behalf of thousands of members of the Guam Federation of Teachers responsive to Bill 253-37, which ends with, quote, notwithstanding any of the provisions of law, active employees of the Guam Department of Education are not eligible to serve on the board, unquote. At 4 GCA 10102, the legislature of Guam declares that it is the policy and purpose of this chapter in the public's interest to promote orderly and constructive relationships between the government and its public employees by providing an opportunity for effective participation by employees in the formulation and implementation of policies and procedures affecting conditions of their employment, subject to paramount requirements of law for conducting efficient and uninterrupted operations of the government. Now, therefore, we suggest an amendment to the reference section of the bill as follows. Notwithstanding other provisions of law, active employees of the government of Guam Department of Education are not eligible to serve as a voting member on the board. Okay, so it sounds to me at the end, it says, thank you for your attention and consideration, the request of this amendment. You know, I'm kind of reading the last section of this, you know, in the testimony. Now, therefore, we suggest an amendment to the reference section of the bill as follows. So I just wanted to clarify that they're not in favor of not allowing a government of Guam employee, a DOE employee. I always feel that you need different perspectives, different eyes, different ideas, and especially people who are in Department of Education to contribute. And so I don't see why that we should not incorporate someone who is in the system to sit on this board. It just gives a different perspective. So my question, and now, Dr. Swanson, since you have, you know, experience in other jurisdictions, do individuals who are members of or employees of that Department of Education in that state are allowed to sit on the board?
To my knowledge, they do not. And different from this situation here, the bargaining unit does not seat a representative even in an advisory capacity on the board. It's the obligation of the superintendent to negotiate those contracts and see to it that they're followed. But so that the board is strictly the elected members, plus 2 student members that are non-voting.
Does GFT have a place at the table, at least non-voting, you know, to be able to sit at the table and contribute to the conversation?
Yes, we have that here, and it works very well.
Okay. I just wanted to hear that based on this testimony that we received from GFT. And from there, I appreciate, again, for you being here and take this in consideration. I just feel that it's not so much encouraging more people wanting to sit on the board. It's encouraging the right people to sit on the board. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sido Masi, Senator Taitagui. Senator Kanata?
I'm all good, Mr. Chair. I already advised you of my recommendations, so I don't have anything further for the panel.
Thank you for
I just want to thank you guys for your service. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Sido Masi, Senator Kanata. Senator Brown?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly welcome to all of you to come and provide testimony. I haven't decided on this bill yet. You know, of course, at the end of the day, we just want to see performance out of Department of Education. I still see, and you know, I was there many years ago when we recreated the board. You know, we still see a lot of the issues affecting DOE that keep filtering back to the legislature, and we had wanted the board to make those decisions and address them because we felt the board would be closer to the school system so that we could have a better operating, more efficient, more responsive school system. And we're still hearing, and we hear this from employers, we hear this from government officials that are trying to hire in critical positions in the government, that there's still a number of students that are graduating out of the public school system that don't have basic reading and writing skills. And that to me is very problematic. If we can't do that, then what else do we do of any consequence? Because I'll tell you, if I can read and I can write and I can add my checkbook, I can make it in the world. The other stuff is nice, and for those of us that have had the opportunity to go on to higher education, wonderful, but you know, that's our own personal benefit. But when we have large numbers of students that don't have that skill set, and we're still pouring more money into DOE, and we're not getting the outcome, and when I see other schools, charter schools that operate with far less money, who are producing overall, again, you know, we have the individuals that will always excel no matter where you put them. It's bothersome. So I haven't decided what to do with this bill. I don't know if this bill is going to have a major impact on the quality of education in DOE, or are we going to get better students as a result of it? I mean, I'm certainly open to your testimony, and if others have testimony to provide, I don't have a problem extending the term, because I realize 2 years is a short time. I think we realize that. Being in the Guam legislature, it's like we just got in and all of a sudden we got to go put campaign signs out all year. You know, I don't know is that big an issue. I need to look at it, but I appreciate your testimony and providing your input. But I just want to say that, because if we're not getting it after all these years, I don't know if we're ever going to get it. I don't know, and a thought has crossed my mind many a day, do we need to restructure DOE so that these children don't get lost? Because we'll never have an opportunity again to impress upon them the opportunity to learn. And if we don't have that in place at a young age, it's very hard, as we know, as we go through life, and all of a sudden you have other family, you have other obligations, you have work. Many don't have the opportunity to take care of themselves, and and I appreciate GCC because you give them opportunities. They don't necessarily need to get a 4-year degree, but they can go in and get skill sets that make them marketable, make them viable out there, so they can go out and make a good living and take care of themselves and their families. But I'm just, as time goes on, I'm just not comfortable with the outcome overall. You're going to have your sharpshooters, those that do well, they will do well anywhere. And I'm a 9-year product of public school on Guam. My undergraduate degree is from the University of Guam. Most of my education is here. And I'm sure I can compete here and many other places. And I appreciate that. But I'm concerned about those that don't have that. And especially because we can't get them to be employed now where the demand is there, particularly in law enforcement. We have such a need to hire our own people, our young people in this community to work in these critical areas, but they can't pass the basic exam to get in the door. And if we can't do that, then we're failing. We're really failing if we can't do that. There's something missing, and I don't care how much money we pour into DOE, and we've been pouring money. I mean, from the time my previous life in the legislature to where I'm now, we've almost tripled the budget of DOE. And I don't see it. I don't feel it. And that to me is concerning, because that's what I think every parent out there wants to see for their children, at least a fighting opportunity to have a good life. Not that you don't want to get them off your payroll. At some point you want to push them out the doors, But you want them to be able to stand on their own and be able to succeed out there. And nowadays, a 4-year degree is nice, but there's a lot of job opportunities out there that will make far more than those of us that have, higher degrees that can go out there, because the demand of the market is there. And the opportunity, like, what you're providing at GCC, where they can get that training, that certificate that makes them marketable out there, that's a great opportunity. We need to encourage that and appreciate the work that GCC is doing. Also appreciate, after hearing the university's request on their budget, that you guys kept a status quo budget. It's very impressive. So I have nothing more to add, but I'm just relaying that concern, because I don't know if at some point we really need to look at how we address education on Guam, because we're a small community. But when those children fail at that level, where do they go from there? A lot of doors get closed to them. And I don't want to see that. I want to see every opportunity we have for our young people out there to have those doors open, so that, be it here, I hope they stay here and invest in here, but if life leads them elsewhere, that they have the life skills they need to live a good life and take care of their family. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions or comment on this bill. Thank you.
Si just want to see Senator Brown. And yeah, I share some of the same concerns as the previous speakers. I know the bill prohibits GDOE employees from serving on the board. but it doesn't prohibit charter school employees from serving on the same board. So, this concern, along with the others raised, we have the commitment from the bill's author to work on those in committee. So hopefully we'll be able to turn out a good bill. And with that being said, Senator St. Augustine, would you like to close? You're good? Okay. And so Senator St. Augustine has waived closing. There's no other testimony to be provided on this bill. And you can continue to provide testimony on this measure and all measures, including the nomination of Lulene C. St. Augustine, malfunction at guamlegislature.org. And we'll now move on to Bill number 276-37 LS, which is introduced by myself and co-sponsored by Senator Sabina Perez and Senator Joanne Brown. It's an act to add a new paragraph R to subsection 3103 of Chapter 3, Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring all reports of the Superintendent of Education to the Guam Education Board be posted on the Guam Department of Education website. The bill is very self-explanatory, and it was actually suggested that I introduce this measure by some board members and some students and, of course, some stakeholders in the Guam public school system. And I had seen, Superintendent, you had about 2 sentences of testimony on this bill, and if you could just go ahead and provide that, then I did have some additional information. So go ahead. You're recognized.
It's, Senators, it's relatively simple. As you said, it's 2 sentences. The posting of the subject reports is already enshrined in board policy and has been in place for several years. The subject documents are already uploaded and indexed from the year 2020 forward up through the most recent meeting, which was for April. Those notes will be up by the end of this week. So it takes until, the only delay is the cycle where it takes a month or to the next regular board meeting for the previous meeting's minutes to be ratified and signed by the board.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Yeah, you scared me there because, the reason why I introduced this bill is before every oversight hearing, I kind of shake the tree for any documents that the Guam Department of Education has, and I get your report to the board and a whole bunch of other things, and I kind of just go over those documents and glean the information in them. And what I've encountered is a lot of times when I'm discussing information and whether it's your report or any other type of documents that are provided to the board, usually the public has no clue about the information. They don't know what I'm talking about. They aren't familiar with the issues. So I introduced the bill so that we can have these documents be accessible. And so when I saw your testimony, we did go on the Guam Department of Education website, which, embarrassingly we did before. We weren't able to find the link, and we did find the link that has some of the documents that you provide to the board. However, we weren't able to find a board policy that deals with posting of these documents on the website. So I believe the bill is still a good bill, and I'm still going to push for its passage through on the session floor. The board policy we did find was relative to distributing all information on action items to each board member, advisory council, and commission. And there was another one, I believe, about your report as well. But then the bill also provides a timeline that these documents will be posted within 5 days after each board meeting. So thank you for the heads up about the information being included on the website, but I feel like this bill would really close the gaps, especially since I don't see anything in the board policy that says, hey, we're going to post the documents up by this amount of time. And then I also feel like the bill lays out a little more clearly which documents, and we mean like anything you give the board. If you hand the board a little, folded piece of paper, then, we want that document to be posted up on the website. And I know that you support accountability and transparency and all those things, so I appreciate your support of the measure.
It may be that we can make the link easier to find.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
I will be the first to agree that I don't like the structure of our website.
Yeah.
That's a contractual matter that we're working on, and it's not over yet.
Okay, right, so you are working on that. Yeah, it's very cluttered, and then so if you, just for the people who are watching, if you want to avail of any of these reports that are posted on the website, you would go to the Board of Education link, which is on the main menu, and then from there, there are meeting minutes and agendas, and I believe there's a little
Policy
sublink.
and SOPs as well.
Right, yeah. There's a whole lot of information on the website, but again, I agree with you. I think that sometimes it's difficult to navigate the way it's laid out. Thank you. Is there any other testimony on this bill? If not, if my colleagues have any questions, Senator San Agustin? Senator San Nicolas? Senator Taidagui? Thank you. Senator Kanata? Senator Brown? Right on. There you go. And there you go. With no further testimony, that concludes the public hearing of Bill number 276-37. And now, the moment I think a lot of you have been waiting for. We're going to move on to the last bill on the agenda. This is Bill number 282-37, introduced by Senator Dwayne San Nicolas, an act to amend subsection 8102, 5 subsection 8102BB, and subsection 8104B of Article 1, Chapter 8, Title 5A, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, relative to removing the PRAXIS core mathematics requirement from the Guam Educator certification requirement. I'll begin by inviting the bill's author, Senator Dwayne San Nicolas, to open on the bill. Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all know, I was a school counselor for many years, and I worked with a lot of the teachers there that have brought some of their concerns to me while I was there, and I never would have dreamt that I would ever become a senator and actually do something about it. But a lot of them have worked so hard, and they lack certification, and they work, many years, and some of them a couple decades, and still have not been able to get their certification, which is such a tragedy because, for years and years they helped the education system turn out our students who are now, productive members of our society, and yet there aren't any alternative methods for them to obtain their full-on certification, and thereby not allowing them all the full benefits and the protections and the rights of a full-on certified teacher. And I've been accused in the media and all that stuff that I wanted to lower standards, and by doing so, and I think you really have to read the bill and understand the struggles of these teachers and what they go through to really understand where I'm coming from. And so every time we say the Pledge of Allegiance and liberty and justice for all, and I think I'm seeking justice for these teachers who I think are fallen by the wayside by some predatory tactics of that one business that that has its grip on the nation's educational certification, and they have no other recourse but to keep taking these tests. And for some of them, I mean, I've heard horror stories, and I've taken the PRAXIS too. And thank God, I passed the first time around. But the PRAXIS, where there shouldn't be any, real big bad road bumps to wanting to become a teacher. I think being a teacher is the most wonderful thing in the whole wide world. My mom was a teacher. I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I think if there are people out there who want to be teachers, I think we should encourage them along. And some people say, oh, you're going to lower the standards. I just came from iLearn Academy, and the place was so wonderful. They graduated like almost 200 students. And I asked one of the administrators, I said, are all your teachers certified? And she says, no, not all of them, but they love where they work. They're encouraged by their administrators, and they love where they work, and they don't want to go home. Sometimes we have to tell them to go home. It's the atmosphere. It's not only the tests that makes good teachers, it's the atmosphere, it's the leadership, it's the quality and the atmosphere where these young souls can learn and grow. And it's not just a test. And I also believe that ETS, the providers of this test, may be predatory in their practices. As we see it, it looks like a monopoly to me. I'm a businessman. I know what a monopoly looks like. And when you have one way, only one way of certification, I think that's a monopoly. And it's predatory. And it doesn't work to our favor. And that's why having this bill and introducing this bill allows for discussion on the matter and offer alternatives, maybe not by removing the PRAXIS math, but offering other alternatives where our teachers, our dedicated teachers who are not certified, can finally realize that, get certified, and get the protections, and get the proper pay that they deserve. And with that, Mr. Chair, nothing further.
Senator Nicolas, will all those who are here to provide testimony on this bill please come forward to the table? And we also have Michelle Santos from the Guam Commission on Educator Certification, who is, are you here to testify, ma'am? Or just provide perspective? Both?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? And I believe we'll start, well, we'll just go order by order of sign-in. Michelle Santos? No? Yes.
That's fine. I did provide written testimony, but I would like to speak a little from the heart. I have several hats on. I'm a parent of a child in the public school. I am a recently appointed member of the commission, so thank you for your support in that appointment. And I'm also a professor at the university in the School of Education. I am not speaking for the university. I'm speaking from my heart. Okay? There have been so many different comments that I'm not quite sure where to begin, except that I am speaking in opposition. Senator Brown, in her discussion previously, indicated that she's concerned about the ability of our students to read and write and basic computation when they leave the school. And we are too when we're looking at new teachers. We're looking at their reading, which is what the Praxis Core is. It's your basic reading, writing, and computational skills. And Praxis Core Math, if looking at the data for the last 5 years, the Praxis Core Math is not the barrier. The writing has actually been the barrier. And are there things in place? Yes. GDOE has been working with UOG on a grant that has been supporting initial teacher certification with Praxis Prep courses, with providing areas where teacher candidates have not performed well in one of the 3 areas, then they can take a class to help prepare them further and pass the test. That Praxis Core leads to, for people who have a bachelor's, they can get a temporary certificate. It is not teacher certification. It is a temporary certificate while they complete an educator preparation program and take 2 more Praxis tests, the subject assessment and the principles of learning and teaching. And it's, so when we talk about the core, we're talking about the very basic level of reading, writing, and computation. We want our teachers to be able to do their grades and figure percentages and have conversations about statistics. I think it would be an embarrassment if you have a professional here who's going to talk to you about the success of students and success of programs, but they can't talk logically about the data, which is what basic computational skills would provide. Having the Praxis Core is a common metric. I don't think it's predatory. I think it's a common metric that many states use to determine if you have the basic qualifications to become a teacher, or basic cognitive skills. Other states have alternatives, such as the SAT test, college entrance. and others have the ACT. So you can get into these programs, but you have a common metric. You have common scores to determine whether you have basic computational skills. And that's all I'm saying is that I worry about the standard. Not everyone can be a teacher. Dispositionally, if they don't like certain ethnic groups and talk badly about them, do you want them in the classroom? Absolutely not. If other behaviors, so there are multiple factors about becoming a teacher. Disposition is one, basic cognitive skills
Does
is another.
Praxis test disposition?
Does Praxis? No, but I'm saying that there are multiple factors. And Praxis core is basic common reading, writing, and computation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos. Superintendent Swanson?
Thank you, Senators. My testimony regarding the SAT core, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations relative to removing the Praxis core mathematics, and I'm focusing on the mathematics part, not on the reading and language, because they are crucial. Requirements for the Guam Educator certification. While Guam's experienced a shortage of certified classroom teachers, certifying teachers with lower skill levels in relevant skill areas is not a desirable practice. Based on experience, however, some consideration can and should be given to cut scores depending on the level of the content area for certification being sought. Passing the core math praxis should be required for elementary classroom teachers beginning at 4th grade and upward through grade 8. Secondary teachers who are seeking certification in mathematics and sciences, regardless of focus areas such as chemistry, physics, or biology, must show a higher level of math proficiency. Mathematics content complexity from the 4th grade level upward so demands higher levels of numeracy and on the part of the teachers and should not be diluted. In short, I support adjusting requirements in some content areas, but not overall elimination of the core mathematics praxis. And I would also comment, my experience with educational testing service is that the whole test system is built with the mindset of eliminating people from the education system, not including them. That was the purpose at Princeton when the tests were created. They've been effectively marketed for a long time, and the society has bought into it because while we talk about equity, we don't really want equity in terms of practice, because if everybody has access, then some people are going to lose power. So there's all of that political and philosophical jargon around it, but I absolutely agree, though, that we need to be able to show proficiency at high levels, and the math content and instruction and pedagogy has gotten extremely complex down into the elementary levels, and so proficiency and skills are really essential to be able to understand and use the materials that we need for instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Dr. Ken Fernandez.
Thank you, Senators. Thank you, Superintendent. Well, you know, I'm listening to a lot of the testimony, and I'm just kind of encouraged and bothered at the same time. This has been a long-standing issue, and I'll go ahead and go back a little bit as far as, since we're here, and we always come back here. I think it started way back with St. Agustin, and Nelson, and then Shelton recently, and I'm thankful that you and Senator Nicolas is bringing it back, because I want to remind the legislature and the people of Guam, especially DOE, because we're the stakeholders who are more severely impacted, that in 2007, the legislature decided and developed and implemented the Guam Commission of Educators, right? And then in 2011, a law got introduced and got passed to tell GEC what exactly the requirements were going to be for teaching. So did you, I'm not sure if we gave them the authority to decide what designates highly qualified teachers, because the two different educational terms that we just keep throwing out is Certified, one, a lot of people aren't that are teaching, and highly qualified. They are very qualified. Why they are not certified at this moment, maybe today for some of the teachers that are here today and around the island who were affected since 2012, is because GCEC and that law introduced by another former educator, senator, of the 3 NCLB requirements to designate someone or a teacher highly qualified, they threw in a 4th. That 4th is the ETS praxis. Back then it was PLT. Of course, you still had the math, English, writing. And then now they even threw in the subject matter test. Why that 4th one superseded federal law, I'm not sure. But the praxis is a requirement that can be used in one of the 3 original requirements as a tool to figure out how an education major who comes out of School of Education somewhere in the States to be designated highly qualified, right? It says 3 things. You need a certificate, you need a bachelor's, and you need to show content knowledge mastery. That's it. The 4th one was, no, you're going to show me content mastery by taking these praxis tests. It affected hundreds back in 2012, and I don't want to use the word hate, but when it was implemented, they pulled the rug out of a lot of teachers' careers, derailed their careers from teaching. Some of them are still here. Some of them are still committed because of what you guys talk about, loving what they do and see what they get out of the classroom and helping kids grow. There's a lot of history. If this bill is going to go, I'm not here to talk about math because thanks to the Every Student Should Succeed Act, which trumps NCLB, they sent authority back to the states. If the governor right now just wiped out GCEC and their praxis requirement, it will happen. She has that authority. You can send the authority back to the superintendent. He can decide what designates a teacher highly qualified who's going to teach. And those teachers teaching in charter schools, if they're taking federal funds from DOE, Title I federal funds, they have to be certified. They don't get to write a law that exempts them because they're at a charter school. I'm not going to pick on what classifies a teacher to be effective, but I'm glad this surfaced so that we can continue to work so that take away the praxis. The praxis is not even a requirement federally. And what I'm afraid of is that ESSA, or Every Student Should Succeed Act, if we give sole authority to GCEC, who knows what's going to happen, right? Now they have the authority to decide, and based on their track record in the past, I'm asking them to be more for Guam. You're the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. If they keep having issues finding highly qualified, certified teachers, let's find ways to get them certified. When they, in 2012, took away their certificates, they forgot to implement 3 things. The new teacher requirements and the not new. Those were the ones they pulled their certificates away like they were not meant anything. All your education just went away. You might have a master's, but guess what? You don't pass the praxis. Sorry. It was poor. I'm glad I wasn't affected. I know a lot of people who were. They became officers. They became other productive citizens, but they just ripped their teaching careers out of their hand at the time without offering evaluations. How long have you been teaching? 5 years. Oh, do you have 5? And these are all code house, right? It's a highly objective evaluation system that they were supposed to offer the teachers at the time to designate themselves as highly qualified. It wasn't. I brought this up to GCEC. I continuously bring it up to GCEC. They're probably tired of seeing my emails. I just recently went at them because their website had the requirements, and I almost thought they bent a little bit because we have trouble with the language of either or. You either graduated from UOG, School of Education, or you came from a business background and you want to teach math in our public schools. Guess what? You need to show me your bachelor in business, go take a praxis test, and take some courses at UOG to show me that you understand what we're expecting from you in our schools. There's always options. Senator, you were saying we wish there was alternatives. There are. What that one requirement does by requiring the praxis as a fourth requirement, it eliminates all of that when they have the opportunity to prove that, yeah, people with bachelors, maybe two bachelors, they have master's degrees, very well educated, very effective in the classroom, teaching for substitute level salaries right now. I can't accept that. I mean, to have policies that are working against us, I mean, they just decided on a requirement that was going to wipe out a lot of the people that just finished their fast track program out of UOG. I mean, won't you want policies to support the funnel of producing candidates that are going to be available to compete, hopefully when we do require certification at the charter schools, to compete for those jobs? You want to teach for DOE, you want to teach for the charter schools, private schools, but you know, for the public funds, that's all we're saying is that you have to be certified. They don't get an exclusion clause. They have, or they might have hidden behind it, but I'm hoping we can find a way to develop more policies that kind of support the need for Guam, support the education programs we're doing. States like Hawaii, California, the ones closest to our Region 9 constitutional pipeline. Guess what? You graduate from a school of education out of one of the universities of Hawaii, ta-da, you're automatically certified. Hawaii blesses you. Welcome to our certification, and we hope you are a productive teacher in our education system. Can we do that here? Maybe I'm asking, maybe I'm pleading. School of Education, GCEC is in the University of Guam's campus, hurting the University of Guam students. Teamwork makes the dream work. So thank you for this bill, Senator, and to all the senators here to at least listen to my testimony. Trust me, I had 4 pages, but I think the heat just got to my head and the passion, so I hope everything got translated and recorded because I probably can't say it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. Don't worry, it's live stream on the YouTube forever. We have it. Not ever. Amen. Is there anyone else who, Mrs. San Agustin?
Hi, yes. I wasn't going to say anything, but sitting back, I couldn't not say anything. Looking in the room, I believe I may be the only person in here who actually works with our students one-to-one and on a daily basis. So I know what is required of our teachers. I know what we go through to help our students. And, you know, the PRAXIS 5733 is really not just about knowing math. It's really about understanding to interpret data. So for a lot of our schools were data-driven. The school counseling were data-driven. A lot of the teachers, for us to help an individual student, let's see who's in need of services, that's all data-driven. And numbers is what we go by to help these students. So to not be able, we use like our ACT Aspire results. We get our ACT Aspire results, and with that, there's numbers, and those numbers have to be understood of the percentages of where the children are at in terms of their stance. And that's all, and that's really all that the 5733 is really, it's about statistics and understanding what you're reading, what kind of data you're understanding. And for a teacher to not be able to understand that would be very concerning. So I just wanted to say that, you know, from the school level, and for me dealing with a lot of the children in need of services, it's very important that teachers do understand what they're reading and interpreting. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could, or if anyone could here, just kind of address the comments of Dr. Fernandez. And Dr. Fernandez, I'm going to kind of paraphrase here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but basically saying you graduate from UOG, you should be good to go, right? Automatically certified. That's what they do in Hawaii. But do you come across potential teachers who graduate from the university who can't pass the praxis? Ma'am, Ms. Santos?
No, if a student graduates from the School of Education with a degree in education, they are good to go. They have met the Praxis core requirements for admission into the School of Education, have passed their content test, and have passed the principles of learning and teaching.
So it's front-loaded, in other words.
It is there. We have proposals, and we've talked about it at a division to see, let's give that Praxis test in high school. Let's give it as an exit exam. No. To get people to teach early, to see where their weaknesses are, to take classes in those areas so that they can pass it. Having a basic skills test is not new to Guam. I took it in 1991 with Evelyn Solis in the old GDOE, or Department of, wasn't GPSS then either, it was DOE. But, you know, that's not new. We want to make sure our teachers can read, write, and compute.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos, and I'd like to defer to the bill's author to start the questioning. Senator Nicolas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And how much do these praxis tests cost?
I believe that is in your bill, and it's quoted at $90 a test, or if you take all three, it's $150. So it's actually more cost-effective to take all three than it is to take them individually.
Of course, package deal. Is there any teacher designation that doesn't require praxis to be certified?
The Chamorro teacher certification with a basic.
And why is that?
Because the commission recognized that there is a need for language teachers, and many times those skills come through in a different fashion. Teachers, they're allowed to build on it. They can actually have basic certification and continue to build on that while taking education courses for up to, I think it was about 18 years as we built it out. But the goal for our Chamorro educators is that it was the language first, because we know that we need to do what we can to preserve the language and make sure people who speak it are in the schools with our students.
So again, there is a teacher designation that doesn't require praxis, right?
Yes, Senator.
All right. How do you test for disposition for those Chamorro teachers? I'm only bringing it up because you brought it up.
Many of those Chamorro teachers have not gone through an educator prep program. However, UOG does have a new program. Dr. Keisha Borja-Kititsu Calvo and Dr. Cooper have put together a program called the Chamorro for Education track, where they are partnering initially with the School of Education, and so disposition is reviewed in those classes, but it's also, they're working on their courses, and it's been approved by the commission to have all their courses taught in Chamorro, from methods and assessment and classroom management, which is one of the character traits we look at even through accreditation. We have to talk about our candidates' disposition.
I think it's, I mean, if I'm just looking at, I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I think it's unconstitutional to have two classes of teachers and favoring one because it's a language, cultural language. Do you think? I think that's discriminating on other, on other subjects. Do you think that's discrimination that you would favor one? I mean, I'm one of the senators here that speak Chamorro. I actually speak Chamorro on the floor. And huguaitza lingua hihu lo I'm going to favor and I want one group of people over another, I think that's wrong. You're going to favor Chamorro language and not let them take the praxis when you still have to meet the teaching requirements. I think that's unfair.
Well, I apologize, I may have misspoken. It could be that career and technical educators might not have to take it also, but I don't have that data in front of me. So that would be 2 classes of teachers. But, you know,
I'm just trying to understand how you can make me comprehend how can you have 2 classes of teachers and you're favoring one because it has a indigenous designation. I think that would be unfavorable to and unconstitutional and very discriminatory. I think if you're going to offer it to Chamorro, I think you should offer not having to do the praxis for all subjects. You see where I'm going? It's discriminatory. Why would you favor Chamorro over everyone? Although I love to, because this is Guam, I love to favor my language, but I think it's wrong to have two designations and favor one over another just because it's the language of the land. And I think it's discriminatory to have two types of designation just based. I mean, it's discriminatory. I think it's racist.
If I may, I do like how the praxis is implemented there, and that's one of the ways it should be for incoming students leaving high school around maybe their second or third year, thinking about what they want to major in after their general education requirements are met. That's ideal. That's one option. Is it the only option? I don't know. But I would like to ask, how many students, when they get to that second or third year, have attempted the praxis, didn't get in to School of Education because of the praxis, and maybe had to choose something else, less demanding, because that just slammed the door into their, I mean, I'm glad there's a tool to kind of designate where you're at in reading and writing, and that's the whole intent of the law, is you want to make sure you're proficient enough. But you just pretty much devalue their second year of, man, I took 085, I don't know how many times, you know what I mean? And you're required, I think, now to go up to 110 in both community college and the University of Guam. In math, I don't know what it is in English, maybe literature. And that's a good amount of reading. If you don't pass those classes, or if you're unable to pass their class, it'll pretty much kind of tell you. You'll know where you are. If you do pass it, it doesn't matter, I guess, because you still have to take the praxis before we allow you into. And this, I don't know about being discriminatory, but it affects those elder people who came from the military, who are after 20 years decided to be an educator and wanted to try their chance because they've been doing it. They're good coaches, they're good workers, they add to the community and want to go into the classroom. So when they change over and looking for an alternative certification, the praxis pretty much is going to eliminate them, because I took the ASVAB similar to like the praxis for education, just for fun, maybe 5-6 years ago with my son. And I didn't do too good. I mean, I think, not that I'm not good in math or English, but when was the last time I did math or English and knew the FOIL method and, in algebra and all of that? It's non-practice, I used to speak Japanese when I was working in the Japanese sector for 6 years. I don't now. It's pretty hard because it's out of practice. So because you're out of practice, the praxis says you're not able, you're not qualified. So it's pretty unfair at that juncture in people's lives when we're looking to recruit and steal away potential highly qualified people and put them in the classroom to share their knowledge and experience based on their years.
Doc, I wanted to find out, the previous law that you were mentioning, you stated that that new law just took the certification right under their feet. Is that?
In 2012?
Yeah, in 2000.
Yeah, that's when
So those teachers were actually certified at that
at the
that
time,
point?
yeah.
And the bill passed, became law.
Yeah, but I don't think it passed based on knowing that was going to be the outcome. I mean, I believe they all were in there in good faith, hoping that we raise and maintain a high standard in the classroom and the people we hire as teachers. But it was just the implementation. And, you know, we can't take back, and I'm glad she's sitting here because it just brought back a lot of memories. Mrs. Gula, a wonderful math teacher, well-educated, students love her. She's been doing it for years. And she needs, you know, she needs the compensation. She has her master's degree. You know, and that's one thing we have to be, we're a multicultural island, rich. You think there's melting pots? This is a very diverse island, and somebody said it earlier, we want to try and avoid bias and discriminatory practices that keeps people out of the classroom. Hey, one day we're going to need, you know, all cultures in the classroom, because guess who's in the classroom now, right? It's different. We even have, you know, from Russian to, the diversity is not the kind of diversity we anticipated 20 years ago. So sooner or later, we're going to need to have people from Ponape, Palau, Chuk, all teaching in the classroom. And if this is preventing them from entering the teaching profession on Guam to contribute from their culture as an educator, I hope we find paths to allow that.
Thank you, Doc. Yeah, that's, you know, that's a part of this exercise is to actually try to find an alternative method to the praxis. Take a couple more classes to prepare you for the praxis so you can fail again. That's not where I want to go with this. I want to find an alternative route.
Yeah, and it's kind of
from the praxis, but
it's kind of confusing to hear that, you know, we're gonna kind of devalue the education where your accreditation has said, yeah, you're teaching good English, you're teaching high standards of English, you got a great program over there, School of Education. You know, your general education, math, science, English, they're preparing them to go into your majors. Then when they get there, they get roadblocked because you got to go do that ETS praxis requirement. Never mind that you spend all your money in your GE requirements and spend all those time away from your family, you know, and to just assume that, hey, you're going to be an educator, you have to know math and English, that's not fair. I mean, at that level, like I said, it's not a matter of knowledge, it's a matter of continuous practice.
Thank you, Doc. You know, I saw Ms. Quilla. Ms. Quilla, you came forward. Could you just go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and give your testimony?
Thank you, Senators. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm speaking in behalf of the teachers who are not fully certified. I've been in the system or Guam Department of Education since 2006 to present. I took the Praxis 1, the English reading, I passed it, or the writing, and then the math. I passed I'm 1 point away from my Praxis reading, from the passing score of 173, 170, and 170, the PPST, that is PPST before. So we made proposal way back 2006, something like 2012. We proposed, or we asked for the help of the Guam Department of, or the GCS, or the Guam Board of Education. Remember us, sir, senators? Yeah. So propose if you can give, or you can make the PPST score as composite score, as what the other states are doing, and that is what we asked before. And then you did not listen to us. Now, we found out that in the PRAXIS score, the passing score is 156, and then you take 5 points away, and then if the teacher pass with a 151, then they will give certification. Then way back in the PPST also, so we found out also that if you are Chamorro, then they will give you initial certification if you take a test, written test in Chamorro. And that is what we feel like unfair to us also. If I can speak tomorrow, and then if I can take the test, I will do it too in order to get a certification, but I am not a Chamorro. I'm a Filipino, but a US citizen also. So we are just asking your help if for the group of teachers way back in 2010 under the, what we call the PPST, because I knew a lot of teachers during that time with the score, especially in math. They score high, and our content of teaching is math. We teach math. I teach math. I teach all kinds of math, from Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry 1, trig honors. I teach trig honors also, pre-calc and calculus. I'd been in the Southern High for more than 20 years.
Thank you, Ms. Quilla. And how many of those years have you taught honors trig and all that? How many years have you had a satisfactory performance evaluation?
I think Dr. Fernandez can answer that.
Well, I'll go ahead and say that she's an above satisfactory teacher, and she see how the effects, and it just reminds me that the effect of certification has on your career. I don't know if I'm sharing personal information, but usually when you're with less than initial or professional, you kind of fall lower on the totem pole. You deal with more challenging classes, and she just held her own all those years when she should be probably a teacher 4, moving into teacher 5, getting that amount salary. She's probably choosing, like you're saying, because of seniority, because you earn it when you're certified, and they get to choose, those higher sections that we offer in like honors and advanced placement. But it just reminds me, and she's a representative of a lot of, and granted, Chamorro provided an option back in 2012. Thank God for that option, because they just transferred over. But those other that are still trying to get their certification, that are affected from there, hopefully they're still around. But how do we make up those years when there were actually options in federal law since 2005? The praxis itself being required by Guam, GCAC, is one of the factors that, like I said, it wasn't even required from the US of Ed at the time, So yes, you can use it as a tool to measure content, knowledge, but even then, it required mandatory English and math. All those other subjects you were asking about, Senator, it didn't. Going back to the ETS praxis scores, guess who decides what the scores are going to be? Every year they submit the score requirements to ETS.
Who, Doc? You're holding me by the...
Oh, am I cliffhanger?
Yeah.
The commission. If they say, wow, 80 almost got it by 1 point last year, what can we do to help them? Let's raise it up 5 more points. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but maybe they should have played with the data, if they understand the data, to see how they can help the failure rates and provide certificates to our teachers who deserving, I believe they deserve. And if they had used the tools that was provided since NCLB back in 2005, the teachers that were already in the classroom should be considered certified. Like you said about the satisfactory evaluation, they just needed 2 or 3 of those to prove it to the state, and then they'll keep their certification. That wasn't even offered. They said, go take the PRAXIS by this date. You don't pass it, you're left with a lesser certificate, which is almost like a substitute beginner certification, which at our, a lot of people can survive on, not at their age or especially at that juncture. After teaching 6, some people were teaching already in their 10th year and just had it pulled under their feet and had to just accept it.
Thanks, Doc. You're a military man yourself, right?
I'm a what?
You're a soldier. You were a soldier.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Where,
sir.
the Army has something called a waiver.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, there's always options. And there's always got to be, if this is not how we're going to look at how much knowledge you have, because we don't really appreciate your NCADE or your CADE degree from that school, what else can we do? We harp ourselves on accreditation. So if you get accredited, if the university is accredited, GCC is accredited, our schools are accredited, you got to believe when they leave there, they understand some English and math. You enter college, you take an entrance exam, use it as a tool. It dictates where you're going to go within your educational path. Don't use it as a pass or fail like it's being used today. Use it as a tool. Interview the person that failed by 1 point. You never know, it might have the personality you want in the classroom. It might be that next drama teacher you're looking for, that next special education teacher that we so much need.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank
I just
you.
wanted to highlight, I'm terrible in math, but that was 18 years of service, Ms. Quilla. You got about 18 years of service, and you probably have many satisfactory performance evaluation, and still, to this day, you are not certified. Okay, thank you. If nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Nicolas. Senator San Agustin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This issue of certification is not new to me. I was in the Board of Education when, back then in 2006, we actually moved the certification office out of DOE. We moved it out. I remember teachers approaching me about that, and it was all about the quality. Because I'm going to ask a simple question. Maybe the certification office can answer this. Who else is required to be certified on Guam other than DOE? Anybody else? Yeah. No, I'm referring to teaching certification, like take the PRAXIS and stuff like that.
Administrators?
No.
Counselors?
Out of DOE, who else are required to be certified?
In terms of teachers?
Yeah.
No one.
Nobody else, right? Nobody. Charter schools I know are not required, and the reason why is because they're not required to comply with what DOE is required, what they need, which is certification. None of the private schools have that requirement. And I know for a fact, back then when I was on the board, and I was approached by the teachers, okay, so that's why she looked at me, she remembers me. And what the problem I was dealing with was the people that were in the legislature then. They didn't want to stand by me, and that's, I guess, maybe one of the reasons why I couldn't get elected back then. Because I was fighting for the few teachers that I believe, number one, we got mathematicians, the greatest math teachers, but they can't pass the English. It's no different. You got great English teachers, but they can't pass the math. And when we want to talk about the military, I'm aware of what the military is, but I retired there. I'm not just a vet, I'm retired. And I used to run a school. And there was a requirement, and yes, you're right, there are waivers. And they grant that based on performance. And then I was happy when you guys mentioned that there are ways in the certification office that you can take a class and then meet the certification per se, right? I may be wrong, but I think that's what I heard earlier. Okay, can that still be done also for when they fail the math portion or the PRAXIS? I mean, they can go to the class and they're done and they're good to go. Is that so? If you can just say that on the mic so I can hear that.
Yes, that is correct. It's under the new standard operating procedure that if you are within 5 points of passing, you may take a class that's approved by the commission, so it needs to be in the math area. It shouldn't be underwater basket weaving, but you take a math class if you failed in math, and that will suffice for the 5 points.
Okay. The only reason why I'm asking that is because, like I said, this was back in 2006 when I was on the board. And this is one of the issues I've been pursuing, but it's just very touchy. And because of this bill now, it brings light and hope to review this and maybe come up with something that the certification office can understand. It's not about competing what you guys do, okay? And a lot of things I was being attacked on during that time was that I'm trying to lower the standard of teachers. But you know what? Back then, the Department of Education didn't have enough teachers. It was worse then. And they were telling teachers, you will not have a job at the end of this school year. And then the following school year, they didn't have enough teachers. And all they blamed everybody else, but didn't look at themselves and said, you know what? We should let go 10, 20, 30 teachers that were our mathematicians, that were our English teachers. And there was no effort to help them. And that's why I asked the question. You say that if they're within 5 points, take a class, you're done, you don't need to take the PRAXIS test no more? Am I correct? Okay.
And it's very,
Senator?
it's very new.
It's
very new.
Well, see, that's what bothers me. Everything's just new.
Yeah, and
Everything's just yesterday. It
this
should
is
have been
just
done.
a couple months ago, and this is actually very old. Back since 2005,
Yes.
the exemption opportunities or alternative ways of proving your content knowledge was referring to your transcripts, providing it to the state certification or licensing office, and passing it with a B or higher. And they have their list of required courses like maybe statistics or math 151 or English 110 and above. If you had done that in your educational career, you can prove it by submitting that exemption form. Plenty alternative ways of proving content knowledge or
but
mastery.
Doc, what I'm concerned about, I understand where you come from.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was on the board, okay, and I was trying to figure out a way how to do this.
Oh yeah, we're going back.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, today, it's a new program.
Yes, Senator, very new.
Okay.
We've had a few.
But the only thing that really bothers me is that when a teacher or a student goes to the University of Guam, graduates, and they're handing a certificate, a diploma saying you are a teacher, they should have passed the PRAXIS before they gave them the certificate to begin with. And if they're already certified, I believe they should have been grandfathered. Because why? You can't turn back the clock. And it's really sad because you've got teachers now that are, I'll bet you some of these teachers right now that are not certified, just hear me out a little bit. They're not certified, but they're probably a better math teacher than the current ones today, unfortunately. Or some of them are English teachers that they're the greatest and they're good writers than the ones they have today. And why? Because through experience, through time. And you know, we need to understand that many people, when you stick to a career long enough, you actually become the best because you're not going to sit down and do the standard. You know, this is the normal thing I'm going to do. No. You keep researching, you keep educating yourself because you want to improve yourself. And going back, I know, Ms. Agustin, you wanted to say something. Go ahead and say it now. I'm not questioning too much.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help figure this out.
Yeah. I understand both sides going on. Just for clarification, in order to be accepted into the School of Education, the praxis must be taken and passed, right?
Right. So
And
it's,
When did that become effective? Before you graduate with a certificate? A diploma saying, a degree saying I got. When did that become effective that you must pass the praxis? The test.
I believe SOE was ahead of the game, and we have had it since 2007.
right, and so Senator, and so some of our temporary teachers are not, they didn't go through School of Education. They've gone through a different school, and then because of their degree, they can get a temporary degree. I'm sorry, a temporary certificate. And that's,
Okay.
yeah.
I see where you're coming from. I'm just concerned.
Senator, if I can just, and I understand, if I understand all of those requirements and the expectations, but you got to remember when you're entering the education at step 4, you know, you're entering fairly new, you're entering with the opportunity for professional growth. They really want them, you know, by having all these expectations to kind of come in there sharp, you know, and yes, you do want them sharp, but they're not going to be polished until experience kicks in. But what we're doing is we're eliminating that opportunity for growth and experience that they can gain through the professional growth model, you know. They prepare them the best they can, and then they hand them over to the School of Education and wish them a great career, come back for a master's maybe. You know, if these guys are sharp, trust me, they're not going to the School of Education. They're going to architect or engineer school or things like that. So if they're great at numbers and things like, kudos to them, and they'll pursue careers beyond education. But to continuously, and then again, in lieu of what? Just one praxis, you know what I mean? ETS praxis. Why? GRE, SAT, ACT. You can probably take an online basic skills test from California or somewhere to prove your ability while you have a degree already accredited, while some of them have 2 degrees, maybe even a master's. You know, it's just disheartening, and the system is a little flawed and maybe biased, and I'm hoping this makes it to the floor, because I know it's kind of getting long, but we're at the bill status, but I hope it gets to the floor. They examine the ESSA requirements and how the authority can be transitions and the prescribed. That's one of the reasons why it got stripped away from a lot of states, is they didn't like these prescriptive requirements that only said step 1, step 2, step 3. And then Guam went ahead and made it 4, you know, and try to avoid derailing or blocking out any potential teachers for Guam.
Understood. Ma'am, you were going to say something, right? Because I wanted to get back with the commission.
I came here in Guam 2006, and then before I came here, I graduated with my bachelor degree in the Philippines, Bachelor of Education, major in mathematics, and minor in English. Then I passed also my professional board for examination for teachers. So before I came here, I am certified. Then I also got my degree, Master's of Arts in Education in the Philippines, major in supervision and administration. Then, before I took the praxis here, I took classes from UOG. Then I spent $10,000 to earn that credits at UOG before I go to public school. And then they gave me professional certificate, professional 2 certificate, and that is teacher 4. Yeah, I'm teacher 4 until now. So I did not get any promotion because of that praxis reading. So professional certificate. And this is my question, because we found out and then we observed regarding our pay, and then what what is going on, why we had been in the system for how many years, and then our pay is, I don't know.
What,
So,
did they drop your pay from teacher
yes,
4?
yes, Senator.
Well, you know, ma'am, I'm just happy that the certification office has changed. And there's room, there's little light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I gotta admit that. Because back then there wasn't any. There's a little bit of light. But we need to still fix the issue we have with the current teachers that we're having, because there's no doubt, I know DOE is short galore, right? Right, Dr. Swanson, how many teachers are you short right now?
As of today, 40.
40, right? You say 40, how many of them? Okay, I'll discuss what you got when we get to the budget, so I'm not gonna discuss that here. But I'm just, you know, this is not new to me. It's just kind of bothersome, but I'm happy to hear that there's changes. Because there weren't changes then. They were so hardcore, they weren't going to move for anything. There's breathing room now. But going back to her and to the others that exist, there's got to be some justice here. Because I understand where the author brings up the discrimination between a small teacher and a regular teacher. Well, I understand that because we were part of the board when we moved them. We made sure we put them aside. You have a different program. Small teachers have a different program. But we got to fix this, because everywhere, I guess that the advantage of being certified in DOE, you can go to Dodea. Many of them do. But being a graduate from University of Guam already, you can go into Dodea. You don't need a certification from DOE. But I just want to bring fairness to the teachers that are out there that are being denied the opportunity for growth that they should have been given. And with that, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Swasi, Senator St. Augustine. Senator Kanata.
I share the same points as my colleagues, so I have nothing further. Just want to thank you guys for your concerns and being present today. So we look forward to hearing further on this issue. Okay? Thank you guys.
Swasi, Senator Kanata. Senator Taidagui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And here we are talking about ensuring that our students, you know, at least be able to read and write by the time they graduate. And if we're putting that type of, you know, non-requirements to our teachers, then we should have the same thing for our students who graduate, that they don't have to have certain scores in order to pass or get a diploma. I mean, is that where we're going with this legislation? We're here about the students, about what's in the best interest. And I'm just flabbergasted about this bill, because I've seen every testimony that came in front of me except yours, Dr. Fernandez, and I definitely respect your opinion as well. But nobody is supporting this legislation. So I decided to read through some of them, and I looked at this one that actually came from the chairperson, Roberta Abade, is that how you pronounce it? The chairperson of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification. And it struck me, the comments that she made, it was 5 pages long of testimony, 5 pages. And the part she says, by removing the math portion of the PRAXIS core, the children would be having instruction from an educator who is unable to complete basic work required for all teachers. At the end of the testimony, it says, there is, however, no reason to remove the requirements for the mathematic portion of the PRAXIS core test. The Guam Commission of Educator Certification is against this bill. The rationale of the bill is not in the best interest of our public school students, as the Guam Commission of Educator Certification supports providing qualified teachers in the school system. Removing the math portion of the PRAXIS core requirement is lowering the standards. This will adversely impact the students already ranking below other locations in math skills. You know, when I was listening to the conversation about Chamorro teachers, do you realize that the majority of Chamorro teachers now are aging out? Those that we brought in were Manumkus because we couldn't find people who spoke Chamorro. This is our island. During my time, when I went to school at GW, public school, it didn't require Chamorro. The best thing that ever happened is to require it now in our schools, because if we lose our language, we lose our identity. We will lose our identity. And we're the only country in the world that has this language. There are tons of other countries that speak Spanish, Italian, or Japanese, Filipino. But Guam, the Commission, if they were here today, would be rolling over and angry, just as mad as I am. That's why they put that less restrictions on the Chamorro teachers. Now where are we going to go? Where these Chamorro teachers, they're retiring. Our language is dying. This is not about, it's not fair at all. Discriminative? We have been discriminated. Our culture has been discriminated. We're just trying to fight for it back. There's not a lot of Chamorros left here. They're all leaving because they want their kids to have a better education. And now we're lowering our standards? Dr. Fernandez, I understand your situation. I understand what's moving forward, but now what's happening today is that by 2014, all graduate students in the education department at the University of Guam cannot graduate unless they have passed the PRAXIS test. That's 2014. So they're ensuring that these teachers, these graduates, which I was so happy to attend at the University of Guam to see, when they called out all those in education stand up, it was 2 rows of teachers. I was so proud to see that, and hopefully they will stay on this island. But they've had to pass the test. We shouldn't lower our standards. Everyone from retired teachers to even the commission itself, all against this legislation, and for good reason. But when you were talking about back in the day when we needed more teachers to come to the island, so we were lowering our standards for that. That should not be an excuse. If we can have one certified teacher who, by the way, gets paid for being certified, and that was a question I have. If we were to let these individuals pass to get their certification without passing the PRAXIS or going below, way below the rate of grade, would they still, Mr. Swanson, be qualified to receive the pay grade of a classified teacher?
No,
so if they come in with a certification, they get that pay grade that comes along with it.
Certification is basic to qualification for the pay. That's correct.
Yes, so they get paid more for not passing a test. That's what this is looking like. That's exactly what this is looking like. We're going to still pay them for a certified teacher even though they don't pass. Do we have a shortage of teachers? Yes, we do. And if I'm not mistaken, we have a lot of these teachers who've moved over from the DOE system to charter schools. And we're also seeing these charter school students coming out, passing tests, reading, math, a lot better than our public schools. And not all these teachers are certified. So I understand that concept. But if you were to have a parent come in today who has a student going to GW, has a student going to Maria Ulloa, and they're putting their students in there their children in there to get a good education, and find out that they're lowering the teachers' qualifications, that parent is not going to be a happy parent at all. So I'm totally against this legislation, but I'm open to other ideas that maybe the commission might have for those teachers like yourself, Mrs. I'm sorry, can you please?
Ms. Cuela.
Cola?
Cuela, yeah.
Cola. Such as yourself. And maybe others that are in your predicament. But in the meantime, I think that until we can come up with a better solution than lowering the standards of our teachers, then, and I just don't understand how someone can have a master's degree and not be able to pass a test. Like this. Or even a doctorate degree and not be able to pass the test. So, other than that, I'm just dumbfounded right now. So
no, thank you. If I may address.
No, I didn't ask for any at this point. I know I'm belaboring it too long already, but I think we heard what you had to say. And like I said, I'm open-minded to finding some kind of other solution, but not lowering the standards of our teachers for our students. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Proceduralist Masi, Senator Taitigui. Senator Paris.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Yeah, so I think we need to step back and think about what is education for on our island, right? What do we want to create in our society? And so I think when looking at this bill, what it does really, it just removes the word mathematics from the praxis, from certification. And, for me, if somebody can't pass the praxis, the answer is not to remove the requirement, but to assist that person in trying to attain that knowledge. I mean, that's really what that's the job of a teacher in general, is you raise the standard of that individual. Education is so important to our society. It lifts people out of poverty. It improves one's life. It allows for self-actualization, right? That's ultimately what we want to achieve. We want to achieve our potential as human beings. And so when we remove a requirement as essential as mathematics, so mathematics is, despite what the legislative intent says, it says here that it's pointless requirement for many of these educators because mathematics is not utilized or is very minimal in subjects other than mathematics itself. And so I disagree with that statement because mathematics is central to a lot of what we do. And, I was a teacher myself in the high schools, and I was really shocked to see, I taught science, right? So, of course, math is really critical to that. But I was really shocked to see the slippage in mathematics knowledge, simple addition problems, right? And we can't have a society that does that, right? If you can't add simple things. This is basic math, what we're talking about. It's not algebra, it's not trigonometry, it's basic math and how to really function in a society. Imagine, you have to pay for things on a regular basis. You want to make sure you have the proper change. You want to be literate. You want to be financially literate, at least, right? We're not saying that you have to be an engineer. How to operate in our society is using simple math. And of course, yeah, we have calculators, but it's always good to have that backup. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about alternative. What is the alternative to testing this knowledge, right? And I know that's something that was said earlier today, but what it does is just removes a requirement that's critical to our functionality as a society. And I think teachers, again, this goes against the very core of our profession as teachers. Can you imagine if we were to lower the standards for doctors because doctors cannot, perform a certain procedure because these doctors can't perform it, we'll take it out. But how confident will you be to go to that doctor? Just like teaching. Teaching, how confident will you be if you know your teacher doesn't know math, can't pass math, the basic skills of math? It's really a stain on this profession. And, if you look at other countries, look at they're achieving so much more because they put so much more, emphasis on the importance of attaining knowledge. And it's not just about attaining a specific level of knowledge, but it's continual education, right? So if you look at Finland, look at Singapore, they're not complacent. They want to achieve more, and so they put a lot of emphasis on learning, having their teachers train up. So I really think, Guam already, unfortunately, we are challenged, and this would be the wrong way to go. If we want a better society, I think we really need to not loosen the standards. And if you were talking about increasing teachers into a DOE system, this is disrespecting teachers. And, I've heard many teachers say that, this is one way to definitely see the exodus, right? If we can't respect teachers and their profession, this is one way to really kind of drive more teachers away, rather than, although the intent is to bring more teachers in because you're lowering the standards, you're driving really qualified teachers, potentially qualified teachers away from this profession, which is what we don't want to do. So this has unintended consequences, for sure, if this were to pass. And I think this is definitely the wrong policy decision, at this time. I think, some of the things that were talked about earlier, in regards to, okay, what are the alternatives? I mean, that's a subject that can come, but at this point, I think when we're talking about just removing a requirement that's critical, I think that's the wrong way to go. All right, thank you.
Senator Paris. We'll give the bill's author an opportunity to close, but I did also have some questions. I think for me, when this bill was introduced, I did receive a lot of feedback just from, as the chair of education, from just teachers, staff, administrators. And until today, everything I had heard was opposition of this bill and similar narratives about lowering the standard. I'm not sure if we're going to say changing the standard, if that's a better way to put it. And then I started hearing from teachers who felt that it wasn't fair that they had to go and they had to pass the PRAXIS, and now we're going to change the standard and give people an ability to get the same pay that these teachers who pass the PRAXIS are getting. So I think for me, first of all, I don't know, and maybe you can help me understand if this is a real problem. I mean, how many potential teachers are we talking about that can't pass the mathematics portion? Because you had said in your opening testimony that what they're really struggling with is the reading, writing, comprehension, right? So do you have an idea of that? Do you track those kind of numbers?
I don't have the data on me, but from my recollection and reviewing the test scores, math was not the majority of the problem. It was writing.
Thank you for that. And then can you maybe provide a little more insight, like what type of math are we talking about? Because again, in your opening, you had said that we're talking about basic math. Are we talking like 10th grade math? Are we talking about knowing enough math to calculate a student's grade, right, which is pretty important? What kind of math are we talking about that's on this core PRAXIS test?
The test includes statistics, some algebra, and geometry. If I recall, I don't have the actual printout in front of me or the percentages.
Yeah, because I'm just leery about moving forward with this, and with all due respect to the author, it is a simple bill. It basically just strikes out the word mathematics, but I agree very much with the previous speaker, who's a teacher, that there are a lot of, whether intended or not, there are unintended consequences that, this could lead to many, many impacts just across the system, just by crossing out one word, and what I'm getting from the testimony from the educator certification folks is that you already have something in place, that if I was a teacher, and let's say I didn't go to school education, I had my bachelor's and whatever, and I want to join the public school system, right, and support the public school kids, Abiba Public School, but I failed the math portion of the praxis, or the reading portion of the praxis. I then have to take basically what's like remedial courses at the university. Is that how it works?
It's it's optional. It doesn't even say the number of credits required for this course. So if a student comes in and says, look, I did poorly on this geometry section, there's this class at Arizona State University online, and it's offered at this time, that's just geometry. Will the commission accept this class to cover my 4-point thing? And it goes out to the commissioners to determine if that would suffice by vote. Until a standard class is generated, we're looking at a 1-credit class that can cover those basic areas, which 1 credit is the least number of credits that would be required, therefore the least cost.
So can I ask then, the scenario that this bill is attempting to address, would you say that the Educator Certification Commission is already addressing this type of scenario with this newer policy that you've discussed here today?
I think I do, and I also think that it's trying to solve a problem that may not exist as prevalently as maybe is thought.
And that's really what I wanted to know. So if you could, I mean, in the following days, if you could provide us data, the committee data with which subjects are being struggled with, maybe some raw numbers, because I don't know if it's, if it's just Miss Quilla, or if it's 5 teachers or 50 teachers. But what I do know is that we're only short 40 teachers, and if we just graduated 20-some, I'm not quite sure if I see an alarming situation that requires us to change the standards, especially if they're already being dealt with by the commission. But I will say there's been a lot of talk today about charter schools and how the teachers don't have to be certified to be in the charter schools. And I know that some of the colleagues here in this legislature have talked about maybe we need to require that. And so if we do that, then maybe we're going to end up with a situation where we have a whole bunch of people who, for whatever reason, can't, or, we're not able to address their certification.
And just to add to that, Senator, just recently with GDOE and UOG, they had an initial certification program to assist teachers who try to get their initial certification, and that was just recently as well.
Right. Thank you for that. And I want to say I attended something similar. It might not have been with the Praxis, but I did attend something at UOG. That was it. I knew it. Thank you. So I attended a ceremony, and this was for the teachers who didn't initially pass, and then they had made up the credits, and then they were given the certification, ma'am? Yes?
We're actually ready to start the 5th cohort.
Okay, so that's what I mean, is that I know that we had things in place for people who struggle with different areas or just the tests generally. And, I just wasn't sure with that in place how, where this bill would fit in. But, I went to school with Dr. Fernandez, and he raised a lot of, I think, interesting points. But, and I'll do the research too, because, I was doing a whole other thing in 2012. But, I think for me, when this conversation kind of hit the kitchen table, right, and the outside kitchen, that's what I think it was that you have a lot of teachers who have, worked their doggins off to do everything that we said they have to do because it's a sacred profession, right? And they did those things, and now we're talking about, oh, okay, well, maybe you can not pass this part, and then you're going to run into the classroom, and you're going to get paid the same as the neighboring teacher who passed everything that, we had previously said they were going to pass. So I think for me, that's just the issue. But again, Dr. Fernandez, I do understand some of the points. Sure, please.
No, if anything that's come out of the bill, or if they were able to amend it further, I like a lot of the ideas coming out of GCEC. And it makes it easier, actually, meeting with them on a monthly basis. If we had issues and concern, return the authority back to GCEC to make those decisions, whether it be praxis and what the requirements are. So we don't have to come here and change a law. Just stick to that law that actually gave them the authority in 2007 or 8, enacted in 2008. They're our state licensing agency. They get to decide what teachers need to do to get for certification. And if it goes back to them, I think it's a lot more flexible than to come here and have to explain the difference between lowering standards and exposing our kids to people that can do basic reading and math. That's not the message we're trying to send. We're kind of holding ourselves to a more higher standard that you guys seem to think that our education is not worth the stamp it's provided on. Like, you got a School of Education degree, and, that's kind of like what the people who are not supporting this bill. So if you need to adjust, if anything, leave it to them, like you leave a lot of the decisions to the Board of Education and other agencies you have on the island. GCEC can make these requirements up. If they have, issues up for debate, we do it at GCEC and not have to, although we do like to come here, it can be held there. And they can make their decision because they have their commissioners as well. They have a lot of great minds as commissioners, and, and they can debate it in their executive sessions and hash it out.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, and again, the author in his open had, I think it says something about wanting to start this conversation, and I'll admit, before this hearing today, I didn't even know if there was a conversation to be had, but obviously now after hearing a little bit more about both sides, I think that there's a way that we can, hopefully move forward, right? Without jeopardizing the quality of our children's education or the qualifications that the people who are delivering that education must have. Is there any more testimony? Everyone's good? Okay, then I'd like to defer to the author, Senator Nicolas, for his closing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming to give testimony. Ms. Santos, or Dr. Santos, thank you for this lively debate we had. You have my utmost respect. I didn't mean to get all heated, but there were some things that I've been reading about the praxis that I find very predatory, and I just don't like that our administrators or the people in power would subject that kind of process on people. That's my feeling. So. And then I'd like to thank Ms. Quilla for being so brave to come up and share how many times you failed the praxis, and to highlight that, because the praxis and ETS have been accused of discriminating. Their tests have been geared, or they're just not diverse enough, and some people of color feel discriminated upon. And that's not my information. That's information on the World Wide Web, and ETS, the purveyors, the pushers of the praxis have been accused of discrimination against people of color, of ethnicity, and I think that's very wrong. And just like Dr. Fernandez says, that we're going to be needing more Micronesian teachers, perhaps Pohnpeians and Yapis, and where do they stand when they may be challenged by this test? And we need those people in class, and they may not be able to pass because of the discrimination allegations of the programs. I'm still young at being a legislator, and I know, I think I read it somewhere, I watched a movie, they said laws and bills are written in pencil so you can erase them. Maybe I heard it from a wonderful teacher. But that's the beauty of the program and the process. We debate back and forth. We obviously can get heated maybe sometime, and I apologize for that. But you do have my respect, and I thank you all for coming here. The process is maybe it's something that we shed light on, and it's something that we need to work to rectify. I would prefer, though, and maybe we can retract this and work on something and as an alternative to the praxis. You can have the praxis, but maybe have an alternative route other than the praxis. I spoke to some administrators before, and they said that DOE had their own tests before that would qualify And I didn't want to pick on tomorrow teachers, but I wanted to highlight that if they can teach and get certified, then everybody else can as well. And it was no disrespect in that regard. All I wanted to do was make fairness across the board. That's what we're here for, and that's the beauty of America, is equality and fairness, right? Justice for all. And that's where I came from. That's what I'm trying to do. And I would like to thank my colleagues who are here, give testimony, and and Mr. Chairman. With that, I have nothing further. We can work together some more and try to bring fairness and equity to the teachers who are affected in that manner. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Nicolas. If there's nothing further, this will conclude today's public hearing. The Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to the office on the second floor of the Guam Congress Building, or you can drop it in person at 163 Chalan Santa Papa at Agustin. You may also send your statements to us at malafunnksun@guamlegislature.org. Sidus Masi for your participation. This public hearing is adjourned at 4:40 Chamorro Standard Time. Guahusi Senator Chris Malafunction Barnett, adios.